backtrack if there was something important that they missed. And I see someone else walking in. So good evening. I'm Christina Santos. I'm president of the Windsor Board of Education. We have Dr. Craig Cook, superintendent of Windsor Public Schools, and Mr. Leonard Lockhart. He's vice president of the Windsor Board of Education, also the finance chair for this term. I just wanted to let you know we are being taped. This presentation is being taped so that it is aired on Channel 5, 95, and 96 by Win TV, and I want to thank you for being here tonight. It is also audio so that questions can be heard. When you speak or if you ask questions, you won't be seen, just the back of your head, but you'll be picked up by the microphone. And just as protocol to make sure it's clear for the viewing audience, we'll try to restate the question before we give the answer so that there's clarity for the public and the audience. So I'm going to kick off the presentation this evening by way of a PowerPoint. I can't do two things at once. Sure. Sorry. But I'll step off to the side so that I'm in no one's way. This is the first time that we actually are doing all our elementary PTOs combined, and I thank you for accommodating the schedule. I thought it was more fruitful if we could put everybody together. And this way you could have and hear questions from other parents and other members that maybe weren't asked at your individual PTO meeting. The guiding question for the budget development was truly, how are we spending the students' money and the funds that the town gets that we allocate to the public schools? There have been a couple of things that this was the mindset early on by the administration when they started looking at, but we also wanted to be cognizant that this is public money and it comes from the taxpayers. So some of the things that came out of last year's referendum process is that the public wanted to be heard earlier. So we've made a couple of changes for this current budget cycle. The first most important is that when the new term was established in November, the Finance Committee was actually a committee of the whole, so that all 9 members of the Board of Education actually are part of the Finance Committee. Committee work on the board is typically a 3-person committee with myself sitting as ex officio. That's what it's been practiced. This is the first time that the board actually did all 9 members, so everybody has the same say. And we did have a finance chair appointed, Mr. Leonard Lockhart, who led the finance process. We also this year started discussions in and among the community around the budget, the Windsor Board of Education budget, in November. So we held 2 public forums in November and December so that we could get feedback even as early as the superintendent was meeting with the administrative staff and teachers as to what their thoughts and opinions were. So 2 public forums, and then the actual process around our budget does begin in December. And we actually had full committee meetings, again, 9 members at the table for a total of 6 committee meetings. It started December, January, and then from the time the superintendent delivered his budget to the board on January 20th, the committee met 4 more times, going through the entire budget book, every site, every school, every item. So we established the committee. We've been working on that, and this is basically children, students were at the key of this budget. Next slide. So the total overall budget for next year represents a $1,582,381,000, or what is a 2.39 over our current year spending. That brings the new proposed budget to $67,608,323. This was the amount that was deliberated over the budget process that I just spoke about, and this was the vote taken by the board on February 17th that at this point is out of the board's hands. And just last week through a transmittal letter, the full budget with the transmittal letter from myself is now at the town council. So from here, the town council receives our budget. We supported the budget, which was the superintendent's proposed budget, and the town council now will have the budget. And I want to recognize we have Randy McKinney. Thank you very much, our town councilor, in attendance this evening. The town council will now have a month to review the budget, and we will formally, the 3 of us will formally present the Board of Ed budget to the town council in full on Wednesday, April 6th. And then that's when we, again, start to discuss around all the line items again. Okay? So, revenues to the town and monies that come in. The educational cost share grant that comes from the state is $11,661,777. That's ECS money. It's been pretty stable over the years. I think we're slightly below. You know, the funds are tight. We haven't really moved around. It's been about 11.5 million the last couple of years. Transportation grant was 216. Adult education, the 56,000, that's money that comes from the adult education side of the budget. Special education excess cost and tuition. This is reimbursement money for special ed programs, tuitions for students that are outplaced as a reimbursement. There is one space here because we need to recognize that years ago, 4 years ago, when we were designated as an Alliance district, the Alliance grant money is treated a little bit differently because the $928,000 that's seen as the Alliance grant comes directly to the school, whereas it is still counted as the educational cost sharing grant. It just doesn't go and funnel its way through the town. It comes directly to us so that we get the money right away, and we also have to apply yearly to the state as to what we do with those funds. Okay, but it is considered part of the ECS. Any questions on these numbers? No? Then, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Leonard Lockhart.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. As you see before you is a pie chart of the actual breakdown of where the budget was approved per the Board of Education. As we've stated in all of our meetings, we are looking to deliver services at the highest level to our students. And in order for us to do that, you have to have the best human capital possible in order to deliver those services. And if you take a look at our budget, a lot of the sticking points that people sometimes have struggles with are the salaries and the benefits of our said employees. Our number within the town is 75%. The state average is between 72 and 78%, so we're right there in the middle. We like to think that we have a dynamic group of teachers, staff, administrators working for us. And in order to have good quality people, sometimes you have to pay for that type of quality. And Windsor has stated year after year that they're willing to pay for that quality for the education for our children. So that is a shocking number for some people. But for us, I think it's right where we need to be, which is the middle of the average. As you notice, we got other things that we have to invest in, supplies and materials, purchase services, property services, professional technical services. These are all the supports and behind-the-scene operations that the staff and administrators need to help do their jobs and to educate our children within the district. Any questions on this slide before I proceed? Seeing and hearing none. Budget challenges. As Ms. Santos stated, we had an increase of roughly $1.5 million. And some of the things that you can look at is we had union negotiations with several of our collective bargains. We also had some things as far as retirements and benefit changes that also bled into the $1.3 million number. These are contractual obligations that that's not negotiable and that we must budget within this fiscal year to make sure that we satisfy our obligations. Transportation. As many of you have known, we've gone to a new vendor for busing, and for that vendor, we did put it out for RFP, which is request for proposal. There was a bid conference. That bid conference was handled by an outside vendor, so it was totally independent of the superintendent's office other than the RFP that was provided by the business manager's office and what we were looking for in a bus service. There were, I think, 5 or 6 vendors that attended that conference, and they were all invited to bid. 2 did bid, and we chose DATCO. And with DATCO, there was an increase of over $300,000 over the current budget. We took into it, in fact, with safety concerns. There will be cameras on the buses. There will actually be GPS on the buses. DATCO is actually investing in new buses. The entire fleet that they're bringing into Windsor will be all brand new. So they're really putting the investment in the infrastructure into the safety of our children as they transport them throughout our towns. Any questions on this slide?
Does that include bus monitors?
Dr. Cook, bus monitors.
It'd be similar process to what we use right now. So if there's a bus that's determined to need a monitor, we would put a monitor on that. But it's not automatically that there'll be bus monitors in each run.
With these buses, there will be 2 cameras on each bus. There'll also be GPS. So if there's a particular bus for a particular school, whoever's going to be responsible for manning that computer within that respective school, you'll be able to pull up live video of what's going on the bus. You'll be able to track GPS-wise exactly where the bus is. So if there's any issues or situations, we have up to the date, up to the moment notice of what's going on at all given points in time. Excuse me, there will be 4 cameras on all the buses instead of 2. There will be 4 cameras, which is better than 2. Thank you, Ms. Batchelder. But again, the new company is willing to invest in that infrastructure. That was part of the RFP. And they're going to be bringing all new fleet online for us. So I really like the fact that, yes, we're increasing by $300,000, but you know what? That's a nice investment in the safety of our children. Right. If one child is hurt, that's one child too many. Right. If one child's left on a bus, that's one child too many. Absolutely. So right now what we're doing is trying to be proactive and progressive in what we're doing in the area of our transportation of our children. Any other questions on this slide? Yes, sir.
Part of this increase include increase in bus services because kids leaving and going back and forth out of district to other places? Because usually that comes back to you as well.
Well, we're responsible for busing all of our children. So if there's any type of busing needs, whether it's doing normal school day, outplacements, if we're responsible for that, if there's sports teams, stuff of that nature, everything is factored within to this contract. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none. Budget savings. This is a huge, huge, huge blessing for the town this year. As we're well aware that, magnet schools, tuition has been rising at a very, very steady clip over the past several years. This year we're projecting a flat increase in magnet school tuitions for the providers that provide it to us. Special education outplacements, Dr. Cook and his administration have done a great job in managing that line item. Anybody that we can keep within district, we try to do so with the resources we have. That keeps the expenses down. Obviously, if there's a child that needs to be placed outside of our district, we're going to spend whatever we need to do to make sure that we educate that child, because every child deserves an equal education, no matter what their status, their socioeconomic status, their level of education or whatever. Everybody deserves a fair education. We're committed to that, especially through the special education line. So Dr. Cook has done a good job in actually budgeting exactly what he's spending year over year to make sure that's truly reflective to the town, that it's not a line item that's negotiable, and that it's an actual line item that's actually very important. And it could be quite heavy at times. We don't know year to year what we're going to have, because we can have a child come on and off this line item at any given time. So sometimes it could be flat, sometimes it can go lower, sometimes it can go higher, depending on the level of support that that child needs. So that's a common share that all of us as a town of Windsor, that we should all embrace when it comes to this special education line item. Benefits. There's been a increased payments from the employee groups. There's been some negotiations with the collective bargaining to help, find some efficiencies within that particular area. Thank you very much to you guys. I know that's something that the teachers and staff don't take lightly, and we don't take lightly as well, but it's something that we all came to the table to make sure that we find a common ground, to make sure that we can present a reasonable budget that the town will tolerate. So we truly appreciate the sacrifice that you guys made in this respective area. But overall, Dr. Cook has done a good job with his administrative team to really go through each line item with Danielle Batchelder and look at every single line, line by line, bit by bit, to see exactly what can we do without, where can we combine services, where can we improve services, If there's something that we don't need, trim it back and reallocate those funds to repurpose to a different area. He's done a good job in explaining that to us as a board during the Finance Committee meetings. So these things have definitely been articulated very, very clearly to the board of exactly what the vision is of this superintendent for the next academic year to make sure that we maintain what we have as well as improving the performance of our children within our district, as well as giving the teachers the tools they need to actually get it done. Any questions? With that, that'll be a good segue in for Dr. Cook as he starts and go to discuss the integral parts of the budget. Dr. Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. And again, thank you for everyone being here tonight. I just want to introduce a few more people because our goal really is that you walk away with all your questions answered tonight. So if there's any questions you have, we want to make sure that you have those answered before you walk away, because we know as leaders within the PTO and within your schools, you're going to get asked questions, and you're a lot of times our best mouthpiece of this information to the general public. So Danielle Batchelder, as mentioned, is our business manager. She's here with us tonight. Danielle's worked in multiple districts around Connecticut, so she's got great experience, and she's been with us. This is her third budget that she's putting together. So it's great. She is an expert. So if you have questions about how much we spend on a box of pencils, how much we pay for a gallon of diesel fuel, how much we spend on paper, or how much we pay for a box of paper, Danielle's the person to ask. So she'll be here all night if you have any questions. Also, as well, our principals, because we're really excited that we have all 4 PTOs here, but we know that if you are a Pequannock Clover parent, you might not know who the principal is at OE, and vice versa. So, so with us tonight we have Rhonda Lesberg from Oliver Ellsworth, and so Rhonda Ellsworth is pre-K to 2, as everybody knows. Mary Kay Ravinola from JFK, and Ginny Hurl is here too. Ginny Hurl is the vice principal at JFK. Michelle Jones from Clover Street School. And then Tracy Peterson. Tracy Peterson is doing babysitting in the cafeteria. So kids are in good hands. And then Nishette Blackburk is here from the Board of Ed as well. So thank you, Nishette, for being here. And Mr. McKinney, who comes to a lot of our board meetings, and so we always owe a cup of coffee to when he's around, is here. So thank you, Mr. McKinney. So let me get back to the presentation. Busing was mentioned already, and so that $300,000, just to put it in perspective, about 2 years ago we had a $400,000 increase in transportation. So it is a lot of money, obviously, and we're still working on a diesel fuel price, so that hopefully will come down as we go through that process. But that is around the aspect of what it could be a typical increase for us. And as well, I want to assure you, between Danielle and I, we must have called probably 30 to 40 references in Connecticut. DATCO is a Connecticut company. They're out of New Britain, but they do a lot of transportation in the state, including for the University of Connecticut. And so when they talk to us about their safety procedures and 4 cameras on each bus and highly trained drivers, we were really excited about that, because we know first person that the child sees in the morning, the last person the child sees in the afternoon is that bus driver. And so we know how important it is. I put kids on a school bus. I know how nervous you can get doing that every day. So question on that.
Going back to the transportation, with the new company DATCO, was there any increase or decrease in routes, or is that to be determined? So
they have updated software system, and so that's what we're looking at right now. We're anticipating that we might be able to decrease 1 route. It's not going to affect times, though, because we know that that's very important to our families. We have very good times in terms of what we deliver to
that's really
transportation. But yeah, we're not a mass reduction. We have 45 routes right now. We were looking at that we might be able to do 44 with some, an increased look at our routes and how we do things. But that's great. And the new buses would have 4 cameras. Mr. Lockhart's a little bit, he's in the industry, in the safety industry, so he's a little bit ahead of us. We will not have live look-ins at the bus. We have the cameras on the bus that will tape. As much as some of our principals might like that technology, I imagine we'll be there at some point. But what's important about the new technology is there were times where we wanted to pull the tape, and because that a cord got dislodged dislodged or something happened, weather, they're out in the cold, a lot happens to that. So some of the times the old technology, that tape wasn't available to us. But that was one of the big questions that we asked other business managers and superintendents about DATCO, and they do a great job of maintaining that. It would be all new technology, 4 cameras instead of 1, and so we're really excited about that. And there were great references that we received. So we're excited about that change. So as we built this budget, we really looked at how we spending the students' money, where do we need to put supports that best meet our students' needs. So one of the goals of last budget that we weren't able to accomplish was remedial math teachers for grades 3 through 5. And so we know that's an area where a lot of times students will start to struggle in math. And if we don't provide them that additional instruction and support, that gap can get larger as they get to the middle school and the math keeps getting harder and harder. And many times it's just a matter of working in a smaller group with a trained teacher that's an expert in math and getting them to get it, because that's an area where students, once they get that, a lot of times that's all they needed was that little boost in math. So we would have an additional math teacher at each of the 3 through 5 schools through this budget. $75,000 is part of the local budget, but $75,000 we were able to free up money within that Alliance grant to provide that teacher. So we're excited to do that at a cost to the Windsor Board of Ed of only $75,000. Our rationale for that is, as you can see, it helps to illustrate the point that I was making. Our grade 3 class, now this is last year's data, so that's our grade 3 that was the first class to ever have full-day kindergarten. And we have seen some great results out of full-day kindergarten as students move up. But Windsor in grade 3 last year was above state average in math. And I will say that the numbers are alarming and concerning, but math throughout the state was very low in the first. For us, it was the first. For the rest of the state, it was the second time to do SBAC, the new testing. And so actually the governor and commissioner have put together a math task force because they're so concerned with the results on that. Windsor actually has 2 people on that task force, so we're getting good information about that work. And we've had a math curriculum in place for several years, so we're starting to see some results of that, but we do dip below state average in grades 4 and 5. And so we're looking to add that teacher to add those supports for those students in those grade levels. And again, that's that first grade of first class of full day kindergarten students. The other area we looked at was science, and so we are doing many more STEM activities. That's a big thing that our students really want. They really respond to STEM activities. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. And so it's really going beyond just math and science and bringing it into real world life. And so what we are looking at is to add a science teacher. That is through the local budget. We teach science through our teachers right now in the elementary school, in K through 5 through integrated lessons. But we know we need to do more. And so this will provide an expert in science that would go into the classroom and take over that classroom for those 45 minutes and present a science lesson that's geared towards the state test that the students are going to be taking.
Does the teacher go back and forth between Colburn and JFK?
Yes, so it's asking a lot from that teacher. Ideally, we'd have one for each of the schools, but we're looking at implementing this kind of on a slower basis. We're writing curriculum and activities right now for that teacher. I just want to show the rationale for why we're looking at that. So several years ago, the CAPT is the science test. CAPT and CMT, they still live on for our test for science. So at the high school, several years ago, we made additions of a science teacher, and also we redid all the curriculums in science. And we had strong leadership overseeing science. We still do today, but we were at 26% at or above goal at science at Windsor High School in 2011, 2012. Again, science numbers like math are lower. That is a very difficult test. I've seen it. It's very hard. But you can see a progression here as we've redone the curriculums, as teachers have had some time doing it, the consistent same tests that we're working towards, same standards that we're using. Now there are new science standards coming out again, so we're adjusting to that. but we've gone from 26% at or above goal to 40.7% at or above goal. So it's really tremendous growth at the high school in science. And we also know that our elementary students are not getting the level of instruction we believe they need in science to do well on the CMT. So you can see they're starting off really the first time it is the first time they take the test in grade 5 in CMT science. So they're below state average when they start that off. We have a very strong science program here at Sage Park Middle School. Teachers that have been in the district for quite some time, and again a solid curriculum here at Sage Park. So they're doing amazing work bringing those students up. They were above state average in 8th grade CMT science last year. So we're excited about that. The test stays the same. It's still CMT and capped for that for the science area, but the standards are in the process of being changed. So we'll have to redo our curriculum. We're facing a lot of that. I believe you've probably all followed how we're staying up with the standards, but there's a lot of changes going on in education right now. Yeah, question. That's a great question. So it's an elementary certified person K through 6. So all teachers K through 6 are trained in science, English, math, and social studies. So they receive training in that. But what we would look for in that person, and I know we have people on staff with this, that as elementary teachers go when they receive a master's degree or beyond, many times they'll focus on an area, and many have focused on science. So they will have that extra training. We have people that enjoy teaching science more than other areas, and so that has worked. One of the things we've seen this year that's new, that we have seen some really good benefits, is the departmentalization at the elementary level in grades 3 through 5. So students change for math and language arts and in our 3 through 5 schools, and so it's allowed our teachers to really concentrate on lessons a little bit more in those areas. So we've really seen some good results out of that so far. Any questions on science? Okay, so continuing on with our additions. The most feedback, as Ms. Santos said, we've been trying really hard to get feedback from the public on our budget. We'll talk about some ways even from tonight you can provide us feedback, but we've been really working hard. The board's had more forums than ever before, more opportunities. We had 18 families come out and speak to the desire to have strings added back for grade 1. So this school year, as we were going through our budget last year, and I think everybody in the room is probably aware of the budget process and how difficult that was last year, we had, just to tell you a little story about that, and so you know what went into that decision making, we had a resignation in August of a staff member who was 0.6 in strings. And so we knew it's very hard to find a Suzuki strings teacher, especially at a part-time level. And so we knew it was going to be very difficult, if we even could find somebody to teach that. So we put that forward as a budget reduction. So that was reduced out of our budget as part of the savings we needed to come up with. And then we looked at our current program and whether we could provide grade 1 instruction. Our teachers felt that we would not be able to do that at a high quality as we had done in the past. We really needed that teacher. So we are looking to bring back a 0.6 teacher. We know if we can start searching now, we have a much better shot than just having 3 weeks in late summer to find somebody for that. It can be a very attractive job. There's not a huge pool of candidates, but we only need one person to fill that role. So we would bring back grade 1 strings for next year and be very excited about doing that. You know, we're firmly behind the program. It's not necessarily just a 1-year fix. We're looking at this, you know, reinstituting the program and seeing what we need to do to continue that. But we were very excited to receive that feedback. I mean, that was more than any other issue that we've heard from the public recently. So that was pretty compelling evidence that the families feel that first grade strings is important to them.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks,
No
Dr.
problem.
My name is Dylan Lomangino. I'm a student teacher actually right now for Dr. Pierce at the JFK Elementary School, and you know, I've been hearing about this ever since I came here in January. It's something that is actually really, you know, it seems really important to the parents and the community, and that in this district. That's a big part of it, and that's why I could really like being here because of the strings program in this district. There's not a lot of other districts in the state have this much strings in their whole program. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're saying you're looking for a strings teacher in upcoming months, so I mean, if it's something, I didn't come here to do that. I wanted to see if it was going to be up here. I wanted to see if it was even on the table. I'm just saying,
You just put it out there.
I'm just saying, if looking for a strings teacher is your biggest concern, that's it shouldn't be a big concern. I'm just saying, if it gets passed, I wanted to say. I wanted to see if it was even on the table, but yeah, this district is so unique. I've never been in a district like this.
Thank
I've been in a few districts, around the state, but this is, a place that.
No, I'm glad you spoke up.
I wanted to see what you guys are up to. So, thanks.
Yeah, thank you
I'll
very
be
much.
writing his recommendation tonight.
I like
He's working with Dr. Pierce, so that's great. Dr. Pierce is amazing. So he works at JFK at our high school. So he does the orchestra for the high school, and he is really a great teacher. We're very fortunate to have Paul Pierce with us. One of the things we want to look at, though, as we reinstitute this, is it's difficult to pull first graders from instruction, to find time in their schedules to do this. So one of the things we really want to look at, and it's not as a barrier to keep students from being part of that program, but we want to try and find out, is there a way to do that? Maybe if a student is attending Treehouse, in the morning, could we pull the student during Treehouse and not have them miss math or language arts instruction? We want to investigate whether that's a possibility in grades 1 and maybe in grades 2 as we put this back in. So that obviously language arts and math are some of the most important things we do, but it's not. I think Windsor is a district that really does look beyond just the core academics, and the strings was certainly important to the families in the community. Another addition. So when Windsor applied for the Smart Start grant, that's the grant that funds our full-day preschool program, we received the funding of $300,000. They're basically 4 classrooms. And so as we go into next year, we are looking at being able to utilize 1 additional of classrooms of that grant. We're not opening another building. We're not doing a wide spread additions or anything like that in there. But we are able to, through our work at most likely Pequannock, by freeing up a computer lab. So in the past we had to have computer labs for students to access technology and to do the state testing. And now that our students have Chromebooks and we have additional Chromebooks, they do that right in the classroom. So it's much less disruption. As I go out throughout the buildings, I'm seeing much less use in the computer lab. So we're having lots of discussions on that. I like to repurpose that computer lab at Pequannock. Most likely it could be OE. We're still going through that as an additional preschool classroom. And we're seeing great results out of that program. These are students that we didn't know before, 3 and 4-year-olds. We got the okay in August to start this, so we have 1 full-day classroom at OE right now and 1 full-day classroom at Pequannock. Went through a state process to select those students, 15 students, a teacher and a para in each of those classrooms. Ms. Lesberg and Ms. Pearson will tell you we had students that did not speak English at the start of this school year who are now singing songs, who are doing their ABCs, who are doing some math. I mean, it's just really neat to see. And it's also families we're making connections with and accessing them to services they may need and things like that. So it's really been great. And as I go through, I like to tell the story. The first day of school, we're learning from this too. So we gave out lunch cartons in lunch and things like that. And this one little boy was just starting to drink. He had 2 straws in his milk, and he just tipped it up like this. And, and now I was there the other day, and he was eating lunch fine. He was singing, and just participating in class. It was really great. We had one family that would stay next door in our family resource center while the student was in preschool. They weren't ready to let go, but the student was doing better before mom and dad actually were. So that's really great to see. But we would, at no cost to the Windsor budget, so there's not a single dollar in this budget for this additional classroom, add an additional classroom with 15 additional students.
We're continuing one-to-one devices, and it looks like, as things stand right now, we'd have one-to-one devices available for our grade 2 students. As I've promised the board and the council, because the town owns all our buildings, we have control of them, but the buildings are really the town's, and we have in the past cut major maintenance, so that's our funding to do lighting and carpeting and painting and things like that either our staff or maybe we'll call somebody in to do some of the work on our buildings. That's our money to do those things, and so I promised that I would keep putting money in there until we were back to levels that we were 7, 8, 9 years ago. And so we're looking to add $25,000 into that. We applied for, and I'm hoping to hear very soon that we have a state grant of $1.2 million to do those types of projects. So that's more funding available to do that. But it's not a lot of money, but it will help move us forward. The last item on here was a kindergarten early start program. So as we screen children into kindergarten, there are times we identify that students could use a little boost prior to starting kindergarten, that it may be a student that didn't go to preschool, it may be a student that went to a preschool that maybe they need a little bit more time to be ready, and it's a brief program. I think it's about 8 days just prior to school starting that they would come in and work with our staff and just get ready for preschool, socially, emotionally, academically, just give them a little boost, because as close as we can have our students starting at the same level in kindergarten, it just benefits the teachers, as we start that process. As mentioned, we do look at reductions every year and make tough decisions that we have to make. For this year, we were looking at a seminar teacher. That's our gifted and talented program at Windsor High School. And the background to that reduction is it has been something we've been watching for several years. Our students at the high school have 220 different courses they can pick from. So they can pick from automotives, CAD, music, art, all the AP music, just all these different areas. And what we're finding is our students are picking those courses over a program that has some really strong aspects to it, but it's a little bit more of a traditional program where they would work with a teacher and then be matched up with a staff member to work on a project is one of the big things they do throughout the school year. We are looking at different ways to accomplish that at the high school, but we really saw a decline in enrollment to the point where we have 16 students accessing that class. That's not the only thing that teacher is doing right now, but we have 16 students accessing that class right now, whereas in a social studies class or at some of the English classes, those teachers would access or work with over 100 students. So that's really what we were looking at. Yes.
What area was that in? Was that in like math or science, or was that across the board?
See, that's kind of the what we were dealing with, is that we have students that really want to focus in on high-level math, and that teacher would make sure they're accessing a math teacher or somebody that can assist them with that. But she didn't have that. She wouldn't have the expertise, nor would anybody have the expertise in those areas. So it was a general gifted and talented program where students would then branch off into access to other staff members for their projects. So we're looking at different ways to do that.
Yeah, just kind of along the lines of that question. I'm just trying to understand what the program is. Is this like self-directed study, or? In a lot of ways.
In some ways similar to like an independent study where they would work with the teacher, do some core instruction, but then be accessing and doing their own project that they did, for a semester basis. The other reduction was Sage Park, and so there was really a 0.6 teacher. I was looking at really our, and I'm not going to change my tune when I talk to the secondary PTOs, but I was really looking at if we do things right, K through 5, our students really should be in a good place as they get to the middle school and high school. We do have lots of supports as a middle school and high school for our students. We have a language lab at the high school for the first time this year, so students that are reading below grade level have access to 2 teachers that they can work in the lab. Sage Park has lots of reading programs and math supports, but this was a 0.6 teacher that we felt, and the principal did feel as well, that we would be okay with for next year. So that was reductions really to help fund those additions that I was showing before. Other reductions. So summer school, We weren't really reaching that many students through our summer school program, so we wanted to really redefine it. And so our special ed director and Doug Couture, our interim assistant superintendent for instruction, have been working hard. We're connecting with the town, and so our summer school program is going to work seamlessly with the town of Windsor. And so students attending our summer school will have a block of time that they'll be doing summer type activities, fun activities with the town, and then they'll have 2 blocks where they're doing basically a STEM activity and a language arts activity with us. And the other piece that we're able to do through this is that students that attend the town summer program will also be able to filter into one of those blocks with us and do a language arts block. So even students that we weren't intending to reach, we're going to be able to reach during the summer. I think we have to look a little less traditionally in terms of how we do our summer school, and we've been very traditional. The savings comes really from transportation. So we would pick up in the morning and drop off in the afternoon for summer school. So that's what we were looking at reducing, because now families will have the opportunity to stay for the full day. But we were spending a lot of money, going across the town for 100 students that were part of our summer program, but we're making sure that they're offered a high quality program, even a better program than they have. The other piece we're looking at too is working with our teachers to have them available during the summer, whether it's at the school during the day, libraries at night, to support our students, because we have, with the technology, we have a lot of programs that students can keep working on during the summer. There's a book bus plan that one of our teachers is taking a lead on, working, right now it's in her minivan, but we're hoping to get her some type of other transportation where she would go throughout the town and share books with families, and students would return books and pick up other books. So it's just a matter of preventing that summer slide that we see sometimes from our students, where they just rest their brain a little bit too much. We want to let them rest, but we want to jumpstart their learning. And I will say, through Ms. Batchelder's work and our work through the buildings, we looked at every single line item, and then the board looked at every single line item. So it really did get a strong look this year. As Mr. Lockhart said, and Ms. Santos, all 9 board members were part of that, and so we answered questions until they didn't have any more for us. So there's 43 written questions that were detailed enough that we felt we needed to put into writing that are part of our website. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Just a few notes on our Alliance grant, because as we enter into the 5th year of the grant, there are some efforts that we're making right now to ensure we continue to receive those monies. I will say, if they did the calculation right now, we would not be an Alliance district. We've moved beyond Alliance designation. We've moved above the ratings. It was based on 1 year, 2011, 2012. They ranked the districts. And because the state, and this was good thinking, because the state wanted to work with districts more than just on a year basis, they wanted to work with them on a 5-year basis, you couldn't leave that designation. So no matter how well you did in the future years, you were an Alliance district for those 5 years. And I supported that thinking, because if you do something for 1 year, it may only benefit that group of students. It might not benefit beyond that. But if you can do something for 5 years and it becomes part of the way we do business, it's much more effective. So the Alliance grant, we go into year 5 of the Alliance grant. We are anticipating $928,000. I'm sure you have followed or seen a lot about the state's budget situation. I will say that the governor has been very supportive of the funds that he's set aside for Alliance districts. I don't believe that would be reduced. Because we're in the last year, we have talked to our legislators the need for this to continue. In 2014, 2015, all non-Alliance districts received a bump increase in the money that they receive for educational cost sharing. So we've talked to our legislators, we've talked to the State Department and said, look, if we don't continue to receive that funding, you're actually putting us at a disadvantage of our neighbors that were not Alliance districts. So we're very hopeful that will continue. We just don't know the mechanism that happens. As Ms. Santos said, right now the money comes directly to us, so we can ensure it goes right into teaching salaries, which is where the majority of that funding goes to. But if it goes to the town, then we just have to go through the process of requesting that money from the town and making sure that that's included in our budget the following year. As I said, we are expecting that the funding will continue beyond that. Just highlights of what that would pay for. The math teacher that I spoke to, it pays for remedial reading teachers. Air Force Junior ROTC, which is a program at the high school. We're in our first full year of implementation. That's another area. So that's really special interest to students. We have about 60 students in there. We're expecting close to 100 next year. So students that were in that gifted program in the past have gone into programs like that not every high school has. I don't believe there's another high school within 50 miles that has Air Force Junior ROTC, and it's really impressive work that they're doing. Is a major science aerospace component to it, and it's not a recruiting tool for the Air Force. They'll be the first one to tell you that about 5 to 10% of the students that are in junior ROTC enter into the Air Force. The majority are just interested in science and looking for an opportunity, a resume builder for college or something to that effect. The grant also pays for a social worker for our alternative program, English language learner teacher. So the board in the last, now I believe it's 3 years, has added, including this one, we're not adding anything new for next year, but we've added 3 English language learner teachers. In the past, those positions were staffed by tutors, but now we have teachers working directly with our students, and we're exiting students from needing that support much faster than we ever were in the past. So that's really important. We're also doing dynamic professional development for our staff that includes technology and leadership, and that's important funding that comes from the Alliance grant for next year. Any questions on that piece before I move on? I'm back to Ms. Santos.
So just to close up, again, this is on our website, and if you go to our website, which is maintained in-house by our own person, there is a tab. The very first tab you're going to see on the main page will be budget info. And these are all links here. You have questions, as Dr. Cook, we literally, the board, the committee of 9, asked many questions. You can actually go to the committee meetings and see the questions and the responses from the administration, so you could see. There's also on the main page of our website where you can submit questions. So say after today you still had questions that came up after, you go to the main page, I believe it's lower left bottom. If you have questions, put in your email, your name, and it will go. Those questions are constantly updated on our website. That's really where we're trying to make it so that any information that came through Finance Committee work, presentations by the superintendent, all of that, and the budget at the glance. Again, the entire budget book is online, scanned in, just as we received it in the binder, it's online. So feel free to go through any of our materials. In addition to our presentations to all the PTOs like this evening, I wanted to advise you that, not the board, but there will be budget forum meetings. These were the forums that were held late last summer before the 5th referendum, which was a combination. So I did want to provide you those dates today in case you wanted to have them. It is on the Town of Windsor website, but and I want to just let you know that the community budget forums are being sponsored by Windsor CT Votes and also the Windsor League of Women Voters, so they're bipartisan groups. The town manager, Peter Souza, and superintendent, Dr. Craig Cook, will be, again, providing the latest budget information and answering questions. So the first one would be March 29th at 6:30. That would be at Town Hall Chambers. The next one is April 7th at 6 p.m. That's at Pequannock School Gym. April 21st, that's actually at 10 a.m. at the Senior Center. That's at the Senior Center at LP Wilson. Then you have April 28th. That would be 6:30, and that's at 330 Windsor Avenue, Community Center. And then the last budget forum will be May 4th at 7 p.m. That's back in the Town Hall Council Chambers. So those forums are already set up in advance, and you'll be able at that point to ask questions of both entities, Dr. Cook on the board budget, Peter Souza on the town budget. Okay? That's it. So, anything else to add on? Nope. So we want to leave you this evening with, quite frankly, the reason why I do this, and Dr. Cook and the teachers and the administrators. Really, the mission of Windsor Public Schools is just to develop the genius in every child and to create lifelong learners. That's why I hope we're here tonight. And genius looks very different, right? This is why we have the program we have. We have a very comprehensive high school that offers just the best of our current, and you heard some of them tonight. So it is our hope that you saw tonight that the budget presents, quite frankly, I think a real look at the elementary level, because I think there are some areas that data, we always do what the data says we need to do, and I think the data shows we needed to really take a look at our elementary buildings this year so that we could address some of our children's needs. And that's it. Do we have any questions? Yes.
So the budget's about 67.6 million. How much, or what percentage of that is the town budget?
It's about 63% of the entire town budget, which is pretty standard for Connecticut. So, I think when we look last year, because that issue came up, there are districts. The smaller you are, a lot of times the bigger percentage it will be. But I would say average, we're on the lower side in terms of the town's total budget. For that, we saw many that were in 65, 66% range. I mean, we employ many more people than the town. It's a different operation, in terms of what we're doing. But it's about 62% of the budget.
So then last year, I think there was like 5 referendums. About how much of the budget get cut? Like how much of the Board of Education budget got cut?
1.4 million, Danielle? Yeah, it was about 1.4 million through that process, that entire process. Our increase this year is slightly more than our first request last year, just slightly more. So we're kind of starting back a little bit where we were, but there's some good supports. Yeah, right. And our contracts, that were approved by the town and the board, range anywhere between 2 and 3%. For that, we do have retirements, coming forward from our ranks that save us money in a lot of cases. So we're anticipating $300,000 of savings in that manner, and we're pretty sure we're going to hit that number.
So I wanted to point out there's a couple of documents that we have on the table that I hope you grab. This one here, actually, and it's a great question. This one here, the most important thing is there's always high years and low years when it comes to contractual obligations, or as you saw, we have an increase this year around bus transportation. But over the last 5 years, if you take 5 years back, the average increase on the Board of Ed budget was 1.69, whereas overall the Connecticut state average on budgets was a 2.1. So we've been below the state average. And I know 6 years ago we actually had a hard zero. That zero has fallen off, but if you take a look over years, because there are years where some contractual obligations are higher than others, and there are some years where you have to implement some new programs because of a need. So I always think, what is it average over the last couple of years? This also details for you the revenues, and as well as in the back, the benefits, the different categories that we went through. So this is a piece of information, kind of snapshot of what the big budget book will actually show you. The other impressive piece is take a look at what we call Windsor by the numbers and some of the information you have. So when you take a look at, well, what does that increase this year mean? What does that increase over the last 5 years mean? What does the budget give us? It kind of gives you an idea of who we're servicing, how many students we have, and overall the K-12 program. I know right now it has a lot of the graduation rate, high school courses, but ultimately they grow up, I can tell you, and they'll all be there. So they may be small now, but they don't stay small for too long. So this is a great snapshot of the district that I wanted to make sure that you have. Other questions?
Actually, I have a question. It's not so much related to the budget, but I know as part of your budget you talked about adding a remedial math teacher in the 3 to 5 schools because you noticed a decline in students and their interest in math or their abilities in math. Have you looked at that at all for the K to 2 schools?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at that. I mean, we work our students really hard for the 6.5 hours we have them, so we want to make sure that they have some work to do at home. But one of the biggest turnoffs we know to math is that when a student goes home and they struggle in their homework, that's something that really turns them off. It makes our families frustrated as well. And you know, sometimes with the new methods we have in math and solving problems, it makes it even more difficult for that. So it's something we constantly look at. ST Math has helped out, supplement some of that. We do have a math teacher leader at each of the K-2 buildings that works with teachers directly for the most part, designing instruction and helping them with students that may be struggling, you know, but working more so with the teachers. So at this point, we've been able to do a lot of that work through the classroom teacher, but it's definitely something we're always watching.
Other questions? If you do have questions, because I always get the questions in bed at night after a meeting. I should have done this, should have done that. Or as you're driving home going, should I turn around? So again, feel free to use our website, submit questions that you may have. It's right on the main page. By all means, email the superintendent, Dr. Craig Cook. He's great at getting back to your questions. Please feel free to email our finance chairman, that's Mr. Leonard Lockhart, with any additional or any other facts that you have that you need to clarify. I think the most important is we want the budget to be clear, right? There's nothing hidden in the budget. It's very clear. But as I've told to people, sometimes what seems clear to me may not be very clear to another person looking at it. So if there is something that you're unsure or need clarification on, an explanation on, please do not hesitate to give us a call or an email. All right. Any other questions? Well, I am thrilled with the turnout this evening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. By all means, please take cookies and coffee on the way out. Have dessert before dinner. I was going to say, you can have dessert before. And thank you again very much on behalf of the entire board for your attendance this evening.
Thank you very much.